Once I have some 3D objects inside of SolidWorks, then I can use the Extruded Cut feature to start cutting some holes through those parts. Now I can use just one piece, or I can have multiple pieces and interact them all together. So just like creating a boss extrude, I can choose a face or a plane. I can choose one of these three fundamental planes, top, front, or right planes, or I can choose any of these individual faces of these parts to draw something on. I can use any flat face, not curved faces, to make that happen. So first things first, let's click on this face right here. Let's start a sketch, and let's just draw a basic circle. I'm going to draw in 3D here, so I'm looking at the view in 3D. I'm not drawing in 3D. Or I can click on the space bar, and I can click on this one here called Normal To, which then will look directly at that shape. Once you have the shape, you can add dimensions if you want. You can tie it into the origin if you want. You can do a lot of things, but in this case, we're just learning about the Extruded Cut feature, so I'm just going to leave it as is. Features, Extruded Cut. Now, my first option is blind. That's just going to go a certain distance that I tell it to go. So if I click on 3 inches, it's going to cut into this hole 3 inches. Does that happen to go through? No. So it's just cutting into this block, and there's my feature. Now, if I go back to my cut extrude and take a look at it, I can then modify this. So instead of going blind, I can say I want to go through all. That will cut through everything you see there. Click OK. And now I've created a hole through this entire feature, but notice it didn't go through this one here. And let's go back and show you exactly why that happened. So click on feature here, edit feature, and notice it says only the selected body. So that's what feature scope is. So if I choose all bodies, it'll then cut through all of these bodies. If I want to just go through some selected ones or a few that I choose, I can choose the feature scope or select the individual bodies I would like this cut to apply to. So this is what's called a multi-body part. I have multiple pieces all in the same part itself. So in this case, I'm going to choose all bodies, cut that through, and there's my shape. If I go back in there one more time, instead of through all, I'm going to say through all both, which means it's going to cut through it the other direction. But in this case, there's nothing there for it to cut through. Up to next is just going to end at that next feature. So if I click on OK, it's just going to make sure there's a hole directly through this part. And if this part ever changes, it doesn't really matter because it's always going to cut all the way through until that next feature it sees. So that's very handy, especially if your part's going to be modified or changed throughout the design process. If you used 3 inches, and it was cutting through, and then you changed your part to 4 inches, now it's not cutting all the way through the part. Whereas if you were to choose up to next, it would always make sure it cut through the entire part. Going back to that feature one more time, instead of up to next, I'm going to say up to vertex, and then I'm going to choose a vertex. So in this case here, maybe I'll choose this little point right there. It's going to cut up to that point. Notice it's cutting halfway into this rectangular section here. Again, pretty interesting the way you can end these features. Notice it stops right there inside of there because I'm going up to that point right there. Again, go back into this feature, edit feature, up to vertex. We can go up to surface this time. I can say, hey, I would like to end at this surface here, and that will work as well. Most of the time, you need to have a surface that fully ends that feature, though. Sometimes you'll run into errors if you don't have a surface that completely ends the feature. Click OK, and you can see that cuts all the way up and removes that material up to that virtual surface. So a lot of very powerful tools you can go into. So again, blind. Oh, actually, by accident there, I actually clicked on edit the feature of the original boss extrude. And I can go here and I can change these features, and then automatically all those cut extrudes that I've been doing will automatically update as well. But I don't want to do that. I just want to point out that you could do that. So again, back to cut extrude and up to surface. I have offset from surface. So if I wanted to give it a positive or negative offset from that surface that I've chosen, it also works really well. So I can click on offset and I want to type in 3 inches, and that's going to make a cut that has that same angle in there. And you can't really see it very well. And that's where I'm going to go and show you this view tools here, which is section view. If I click on section view, I can change the plane that I'm viewing it on, and I can drag that up through the part, and you can see inside the part. Right about there is where I want to show you. Click OK, and you can see I just sliced that in half, and you can see now this plane here is what I used. It's offset from that plane, and we're viewing inside the part. When you're done viewing, go ahead and turn section view off, and it goes back to the normal view. Last couple I want to point out is the up to body. So I can say I want to cut this all the way up to that body, and that will work as well. Or the last one is mid plane. If I want to make a cut and it just happens to go the same amount to the right and left and cut through whatever happens to be there. In this case, there's obviously nothing here out to the right, only this piece on the left, so it's not really going to do anything amazing in this context. However, it is a really great feature, and I use it quite a bit. So those are the key features for both the Boss Extrude and the Boss Extrude Cut. They operate pretty much exactly the same way. I'm just going to create a sketch, define how far I'd like to extrude cut it, and define which method I would like to use to define that end condition. So there's a lot of different end conditions depending on what else I have in the model to end that feature. The Boss Extrude and the Boss Extruded Cut are probably the two most common tools that are going to be used for creating most of your models inside of SolidWorks.